Hi, and welcome to The Bright Balloon, a podcast where I'm sharing bright ideas for your balloon business. My name is Sarah Meyer, and I'm a balloon business owner like you, and I love the creative side of what I do, but I really love the business side, which seems to be the part where most people struggle. So I'm here to help. Each week, I'm bringing you an episode full of bite-sized tips you can use to make improvements in your business. I want you to make more money, eliminate stress, and learn along with me as we grow our creative businesses together. Welcome to The Bright Balloon, presented by 17 Hats. Hello and welcome to this month's bonus episode. Each month I record an episode about what is going on over in our Patreon group. So if you're not familiar, that is where I run the book club. So for $5 a month, there's a bunch of us over there that are reading through self-development and business books. And for the $5 a month, you get 4 bonus episodes about the book. So you don't even have to read it. It's kind of like the Cliff's Notes with some of my own personal takeaways added in there. And this past month, the March book of the month was called Company of One. And it is one of my favorites. I think I say that about all the books, but this one is up there with The Pumpkin Plan. It really spoke to me personally, and it landed at a pretty interesting time in my life. So March was when I left my full-time job of 10 years. And this book telling me that running a business the way I want to run it, keeping things small on purpose, that, you can be very profitable and very lean at the same time. Like it told me what I already thought and what I already do, but it made me feel like I wasn't alone in thinking those things. So I am going to share my top 3 takeaways from the book. And if you want to hear more, there are 4 more bonus episodes ready for you over in the Patreon group. Again, that's $5 a month. And once you sign up for that, those episodes release just like regular podcast episodes. So if you're looking for a little bit more of a deep dive, and I would say I probably share a little bit more personally, just because it's more of like a protected podcast. It's not publicly broadcast, so not everyone can listen. So those episodes, I feel like I do the most self-reflection and growth, and this book has definitely been a contributor to that. So let's take a quick break, and then we will dive into our March book of the month, Company of One. Our friends over at Havin, Party Wholesale have been supporters of this podcast since day one, and they are continuing to support the balloon industry like no other. Right now on their website, they even have a special 10% off sale going through April 7th using code SPRING at checkout. So if you are loading up on all of the brand new colors, all of your summer supplies and gear, head over to havinaparty.com to check out all of their inventory available today. Thank you to the entire family over at Havin Party Wholesale. Okay, welcome back. Let's jump into this book. This is one of my favorites. I would say there is not ever going to be anything that beats The Pumpkin Plan for me, but this one is definitely in my top 5. So again, the title was Company of One, and it's this idea that you don't have to grow your business to be successful. You don't have to have 10 employees. You don't have to have a warehouse. You don't have to have a van. You don't have to have anything that people tell you you have to have in order to be successful, because ultimately that depends on your definition of success. What type of life do you want? And the author argues that a lot of times people just grow and grow and grow and scale because that's what they feel like they should do. That's what they feel like the next step for them is. And I couldn't agree more. There have been steps that I have taken just because I feel like I was supposed to. And then most of the time I end up undoing those steps and reverting back to what feels right. Not necessarily what feels comfortable, but what makes sense for me in my life. So if you use me as a case study, I am a very newly full-time balloon person. I was working a full-time job with balloons. I have a 3-year-old daughter. I live in the Midwest. All of those things impact my business and my life. My business should look very different than a middle-aged man with no kids living in California, whose goal is to have 10 locations, right? Like our businesses, even though we are in balloons, it's very different. So I think sometimes we generalize and we feel like there's this cookie cutter mold that we should all follow. And this book has identified the mold that I definitely want to follow, and that is staying small. So there's nothing wrong with growing and scaling and having all the employees and a fleet of van, and maybe your goal is to do $1 million in sales. That is fine. I don't have those goals, and this book is for me. So if you don't have those goals, this book is for you. I really resonated with everything that it said. So my first huge takeaway from this book is that one of the biggest advantages in staying small is that your customer service and your art or your quality, it doesn't have to scale. So a lot of these large companies, let's take Amazon, everything they do has to scale to the biggest possible size, right? Like they have to be able to replicate everything they do on a global scale. And that's really hard to do. Versus as a small business owner, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to have all of your systems automated. You don't have to have everything ironed out. You don't have to have the most streamlined, efficient company. You can actually have a very strong business built around the idea that your customer service does not scale, that the quality of your products does not scale, that you can't serve everybody. That in itself is kind of like a secret sauce. Being able to cater to a small group of people and do something really, really well that you can't do for thousands of people. That in itself is a secret that a lot of people don't have in their business, right? Like you think of kind of these mid-sized companies. I think of the job that I just left, honestly, and that was like a small private college that employs several hundred people. It's big enough that we had to automate. We had to be big, but it was small enough that we still had some of those like clunky manual tasks, and it made for a very difficult work environment because we were trying to produce on a large scale, but we had the means of a very small manual company, and it led to a lot of frustration for me, for employees. I mean, it's probably one of the reasons that I ended up leaving because I was asked to do so much on such a large scale, and it wasn't fun, and it wasn't enjoyable, and it wasn't serving our clients at the end of the day. Versus if I look at my balloon company, it's just me and my inflator, Kate, but I take limited jobs. I can give those customers all of my attention. I don't have to worry about, having everything run on autopilot because I can just do it. If sometimes I want to spend more on a job and try something new, I can do that because I can afford to with time and money. There are just certain advantages that you keep when you stay small. And this book says one of the largest advantages is customer service. So one of the stories that stuck with me is this idea of this pizza delivery story. So in the book, they talked about how one of the customer service reps at a very small company was on the phone with a client, and they were troubleshooting technology or something like that. The internet or their website went down or something wasn't working. So this customer service rep was on the phone with them for a couple of hours and heard someone in the office talk about getting hungry. So in the midst of this troubleshooting, she called and had a pizza delivered to their office. So all of a sudden they hear this knock on the door, and this customer service rep was able to say, hang on, go answer the door, get your pizza, and then we're going to get back to work and solve your problem. And obviously the people who worked in the office were like blown away that someone would have done this, that they would have gone above and beyond and provided this type of exceptional service. And I think the knee-jerk reaction is like, but that's unreasonable. Like, you couldn't do that for all your clients. That's crazy. Except it's not. If you only have a handful of clients and you treat them really, really well, you can do whatever you want. You can do crazy things like that. You can send gifts. You can spend hours on the phone with them. It's when you have hundreds of clients, thousands of clients that, then you can't send them all pizzas, right? Like you can't spend time with all of them. But then you lose a bit of what makes you so special. So this idea that scaling really starts to destroy some of your customer service. That's where you have customer service reps that like you're just trying to talk to a person and you just keep hitting zero, desperately trying to get to someone, and they don't really know how to answer your question and they don't have the authority to really solve the problem. Like, we've all been in those situations and they're very frustrating, and they're always at large companies. It's always the small companies that have the authority to make it right, to solve your problem, to go above and beyond, to make the right call on the fly. Like, that is the huge advantage of staying small, which is this idea of company of one. I should have clarified too, this idea of company of one doesn't necessarily mean that you literally have one employee. It just means that you have enough autonomy in your job to make those decisions and to be able to, really, really provide amazing customer service. In my situation, I really am like a company of one, but I would argue that the same is true for a company of, 10. We are all small companies. But this idea that as soon as you grow and scale, you lose some of what made you special in the beginning. So that was one of my huge takeaways, to focus on customer service and be comfortable with the idea that it doesn't always have to be efficient. It doesn't always have to be the same. It doesn't always have to be super professional and super, to the point. Sometimes it's okay to spend more time, more money, more resources to personalize the experience for your customers. So I really enjoyed that. The next big takeaway is this idea that if you make enough money to have the life that you want, that's enough. That, like, when is enough, right? I feel like there's a lot of people who there's never enough. They never reach the amount of money that feels good, because when you run your own business, there's always more, right? You can always send another email. You can always make another sale. You can always try to make another upsell. You can always work on Sunday, even though you said you weren't going to. You can always cancel a family vacation. You can always skip your kid's baseball game. Like, there's always going to be more. And I'm really guilty of falling into that. Like, I am a bit of a workaholic and there's always more. But this book says that one of the best things about being a small business is that maybe you only need to hit $100,000 in sales, and then that pays your salary, and then that's it. Like, what if you only had to do 5 or 10 jobs a month, and then that hits your quota, and then you're done? And the beauty of doing that is that if you're only going to do 5 or 10 jobs a month, you're probably not going to do $100 jobs. You're probably going to focus on those $5,000, $10,000 jobs and really go after them, because you have the bandwidth to focus on those people and to try to go after those sales. It's when we start trying to do 20, 30, 40, 50 jobs a month that we get frazzled, and then all of a sudden we need to hire help. And then all of a sudden we need to hire more people to market, to bring in more jobs, to pay the help. And then we need to hire more help because now we need a marketing manager to work on the sales team that then gets the jobs for the inflators and the installers. And now we need a new van. And all of a sudden, as an owner, you're making the same amount of money, but you're working so much harder and the stress is a lot greater. Now, there are a lot of people that are wired to do this, and they love that idea of scaling, and they don't ever want to touch a balloon. They want to have the team working under them. I am not that person, and I think for a minute there, I tried to be. I thought I could be, and it was very uncomfortable. It was very unfulfilling, and ultimately didn't result in any more money. So now I am back to nuts and bolts. I love being a small company. I love having my inflator. Don't get me wrong. I love having help. But she inflates balloons. She's learning to do basics like columns and arches. And that has been enough help to get me the bandwidth to focus on some new projects. Like this podcast is the perfect example. This is like a side hustle of balloons that has turned into another business, which I'm very grateful for. But I don't want the large team. I don't want to meet the sales goals each month. I don't want to have, multiple vans going out for multiple deliveries at the same time. I think in my little community, I can make just as much or more money doing it with a very lean, very small team and limiting the jobs that I take and focusing on those larger contracts, those big pumpkins, if you will. Throwback to the Pumpkin Plan. That was my favorite book that I've read. And it's the same idea that more isn't more. Sometimes focusing on your big clients and kind of weeding out the clients that are ordering small things and have a ton of demands and taking up a bunch of your time. I think some people would say, well, hire someone to deal with those clients. But why? Why not just eliminate those clients? Send those clients to someone else. Make that someone else's problem. And you just take the good jobs and do what you love to do, which in my mind, it's making sales and it's doing installations. I don't particularly love inflating balloons anymore, but I do like getting my hands dirty. Like I like being the one to do the install. For me, that's very satisfying. So I really like that idea that figure out what you need to make and then make that much, because there's always going to be more. And if you don't set those goals and then, stop or at least slow down when you hit those goals, or at least reward yourself when you hit those goals, you're going to burn out, because there's never an end. There's never a bottom. There's always more. And one of the terms that I heard is, you don't want to be the richest person in the grave. And I think as balloon people who were kind of on the first wave of balloon decor get older, I have met several people that wish they had worked less and wish they had spent more and wish they had taken more time off, because you make all this money, but you're working so hard, you literally can't spend it, right? Like you can't go on a vacation because you're booked up 2 years in advance. So this idea of really disciplining yourself to spend some of the money, I am one of those people that needs to intentionally spend money. Like I love shopping. I love, I'm not like super stingy, but like taking time away, taking time off, that is hard for me because I genuinely like to work. So vacations are something I need to consciously plan and do. They're not just things that are going to accidentally happen. Like we need to set time aside to actually take vacations. And this summer, I'm excited that we're going on a cruise. We're thinking about going to a couple of concerts. Like I'm very excited to intentionally take some time away. But that's scary because anytime I'm away from my business, I'm not making money, especially now that I've quit my day job. There's not paid time off. There's not time away that I am still making money. If I'm not working, I'm not getting paid. But I think long term, taking those vacations, spending that money, rewarding myself is how I will have a long career in balloons. And again, like I said, I think that this aligns with the Pumpkin Plan, which is my number one recommended book. Actually, if you are not in the book club, you can click over and you can listen to a couple of those Pumpkin Plan episodes because I thought they were so good. I wanted to make them public for people to hear. So you can check some of those out. And I do have a full review of the Pumpkin Plan. But this really aligns with this idea that work-life balance matters, that you will actually get ahead by trimming off some of those little small dead pumpkins and catering to the larger pumpkins, and just kind of knowing when enough is enough. You don't have to serve everybody. And knowing that means that you can be pickier. You can choose who to serve. And I think in my mind, competition becomes less of a thing. Like I get less concerned with what other people are doing and the jobs that I didn't get, because those are other people's pumpkins. Those aren't mine. They don't bother me. They don't affect me. So it really helps me mentally. All right, let's take a quick break and hear from a sponsor. I'm going to take a drink of water, and then I will come back with my last big takeaway from this book, which was really huge for me.
Hi, this is Jeff from Balloon Suite by Asset Lab. We help balloon decor businesses bring in more sales and leads with a high-tech toolkit that includes your website, your domain, your advertising, your search engine optimization. Our plans start at $50 a month, and we'll even buy out your Wix or Squarespace or GoDaddy subscription to help you get onto a platform that's made for and optimized for your business in balloon decor. Check us out at balloonsuite.com.
All right, let's finish this off with my last takeaway and probably my greatest takeaway from this book. And this was the idea that growth doesn't have to be reflected in the size of your company or the amount of money you're making. And I don't think we talk about that enough in our industry. Growth can look a lot of ways. I don't think we talk about that enough in life, right? I think a lot of success is judged by how much growth we see in our business. Are we in a warehouse? Do we have vans? Do we have employees? Have we increased our sales this year? And the book points out that companies are not designed to grow year after year. That's just not sustainable. It doesn't make sense, but for whatever reason, it's how we function as a society. We expect to increase our sales every single year. We expect to increase our staff every single year. And I think this idea of growth being reflected in numbers increasing is is hard because there are going to be years where your sales are the same. And that's something to celebrate. There are years where your sales will be way down and then they'll go up and then they'll go down again. Like it doesn't need to be this linear growth up, because when does it end, right? And when does the pressure start getting to you when you can't double your numbers every single year? You can't hire another employee. You can't move to a bigger space. You can't purchase a new van. Like, I am in this very interesting stage of my business right now that I've been referring to as maintenance phase. Like, that's kind of like a weight loss term. Like, a lot of people, they lose weight and they're on a roll. And then you get to a point where like, you can't lose any more weight. So like, what do? You have to learn this new normal of just maintaining what is healthy. And that's how I feel like in my business. I have grown to a point that's like really good for me. I am in a good workshop. I have a great employee. I have a van. I like everything is working. But that part of me still wants to grow. And I feel like if I'm not growing, I'm doing something wrong. And reframing that and understanding that growth doesn't have to be a metric. It doesn't have to be something that you can see on paper. It doesn't have to be employees, income, size. It doesn't have to be something that can be seen by others. Growth can be the way you feel about yourself. It can be the quality in which you're producing balloons. It can be the speed at which you're creating stuff. It can be how you feel fulfilled, right? Like this year, I feel like a huge growth for me was going full-time in my business. But the first thing that everybody asked was like, wow, how much more are you going to be able to do in sales? Are you going to be able to double your numbers? And it was like, why is that the first thing that everyone assumes, that because I'm leaving my job, I now am going to double my numbers in balloons? I don't have any intention of doubling my numbers in balloons. I see myself as working 2 full-time jobs for the last 5 years, and it was really exhausting. And now I'm very excited to work 1 full-time job, not double the work that I'm doing at this 1 full-time job. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, I just think there is a very problematic cultural pressure that we always need to be growing in a way that other people can identify. I have been growing in interesting ways. Like, I have grown in relationships. I have made some of my best friends through balloons. I have grown through this podcast, through these books that I've been reading. This podcast as a whole is like a side hustle of a side hustle that came out of pandemic boredom. This has been a whole new area of growth. Like, I've learned how to podcast. I've learned how to edit. I've learned, well, arguably, I know sometimes my editing's not the best. I mean, so many things have come from this podcast that I never would have learned how to do. Like the techie stuff, the marketing stuff, the public speaking stuff. Like, that is all growth that has not been reflected in the size of my balloon business. So looking in from the outside, you'd think like, wow, you're still just doing all this by yourself. It's like, yeah, but why is that? Why is that how people are judging the success of companies? I've also been fortunate enough to see financial growth. Like, I have made more money year after year, but I'm getting to a point where that is going to start evening out. Like I mentioned, the maintenance phase, right? Like, I am very comfortably making a salary doing balloons. And I think that is something to be extremely proud of. So this pressure to now double sales is just something that I'm rejecting. Like, I'm just not entertaining it. And I know people mean it as a way of encouragement. But the thing is, like, I don't have a lot of free time. It's not that I'm leaving a 40-hour-a-week job and now I have 40 hours a week to focus on balloons. I'm leaving a 40-hour-a-week job, and now for the first time, I'm going to be working, I don't know, 60 hours a week. I was working an ungodly amount of hours, and I'm very excited not to do that. So I'm just like rejecting this idea that I'm going to double my sales. Maybe I will. I'm having a really slow start of the year, so it's not looking like that's going to happen. And I am okay with that. Like, there are times I freak out, but there's also times where I'm just very happy to be living a very flexible life and doing what I want to do. And that's huge growth for me. Like, not having to go to an office every day. That's where I am seeing growth in my life, not necessarily in my business. So that, I think, is a huge thing to take away from this book that I just love. That it goes back to, I think, an episode I recorded probably a year ago now, but this idea that what is happening in other people's business is none of your business. Like you don't know, first of all, what's really going on, and whatever is going on doesn't impact you. So if you see someone experiencing massive growth, and I'm giving the air quotes, first of all, that doesn't impact you. Second of all, you don't know that is necessarily coming back in positive ways. I could hire 5 employees tomorrow. It would look really great from the outside. It would be really, really problematic to my financial well-being and the future of my company, right? Like I could go and get another van just so I could say I have 2. Like, cool. That would be devastating to me financially. Like there are all these things I could do that would reflect growth that would be negative growth. They would not be beneficial. So I love this idea that growth does not have to be measurable. It doesn't have to be linear. It doesn't have to be size. It can be whatever you want. There are some people listening where I know that growth for you would be taking a weekend off. Growth might be getting rid of a couple employees. It might be cutting back. It might be getting rid of a couple clients, right? Like strategic growth by actually eliminating some of your income. Like these are all concepts that they're kind of new to me, but I love that this book brought them up because I don't think we always think about them. I just think we're always on this hustle and grind and more is more. And I just don't think that's true. I think sometimes less is more and fun is more and comfortable is more. And however you want to grow is how you should grow. And you have the power to do that if you have a very small company. You're agile. You can make changes whenever you want overnight. You can update your website tomorrow and start offering something new. These are all huge advantages that we have as small business owners. And I love that the book pointed this out. I love looking at being a small business as a superpower, right? Like we have advantages that Amazon doesn't have. And that's true. It's hard to believe that, right? Because like we're not billionaires, but there are things that companies like Amazon and Microsoft, that is like steering the Titanic. You cannot make quick changes. You can't. We are like little swimmers, right? We can just all of a sudden decide to go right, left, under, up, down. Like we can do whatever we want. We're fast, we're agile, we are in control. And I think that is really exciting for me. So that is my wrap up of Company of One. There was a lot in this book and I really, really loved it. There was actually like big takeaways. And I outlined that like my 3 things that I'm actually going to do to focus on my small size and upping my customer service. And that is all in the bonus episodes. But these were kind of my broad sweeping takeaways from this book that I found lovely. If you would like to join us in the book club, you are welcome. There are more than 100 people in there. And this month's book is another goodie that I think will challenge our mindset. And it is called The Passion Economy. So really along the same lines, this idea that now is the best time to follow your passion and make money doing something that you enjoy, because the old way of making money, the old way of, working at a job for 30 years and retiring with a pension, it simply isn't an option anymore. That model just doesn't exist. So you might as well do something you love. So that is the book that we are working on right now. And this book, this month, I'm excited that we are actually changing things up. And instead of doing 4 bonus episodes, it's going to be 3 bonus episodes and a live Zoom book club. So that is going to happen the last week of this month. So now is the perfect time to join our little community. If you want to either listen to me talk about a book or read along with me, either one is fine. But I cannot stress enough how much growth I have gained from these books. We have to be on like our 15th or 16th book by now. And man, it has been such a game changer in my life and my business. I have gained so much knowledge. So I know that some of you have too that are in the book club, and I appreciate your messages and encouragement. And I know I could tell you that the 4 people that I know are going to be on the book club because they're the ones that message me every single month about these books. But I would love to have a handful of you. I'd love to get like 10 or 15 on that Zoom call. I think it could be really fun to chat about our personal takeaways because they're all going to be different, which is going to be really, really fun. So the link to join is in the show notes. Otherwise, if you decide to pass this month, that is fine. I will check in next month with our wrap-up episode for the Passion Economy. All right, I will see you next week for another episode. Thanks for listening. As usual, I tried to keep it bright and light. If you are interested in bonus episodes, check out our Patreon group where I release an additional episode every single week and you unlock more than 50 archived episodes as soon as you join. Check out the link in the show notes wherever you're listening.